Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hope everyone is doing well. We are going live today with Michali, and we're going to answer a question that was asked on the AMAs. So we're going to wait for some of you to show up and for Michali. Hey, Michali. Let me invite you.
Hello.
How are you? Let me get my little sticky pad prop. 1 second. Here we go.
Nice to see you.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I like my time management is like always off by 10 minutes because I don't like take into account that I will need to get dressed, go to the bathroom, get a drink. I'm like, I have 30 minutes. I could do Pilates. Like, let's forget.
Exactly.
No.
There's a joke in my house that it's like, you know when it's time to go when you start cleaning the house, you know?
Totally. Like I always think I have good time management, but like I'm always off by like 15 minutes because I like think that just by thinking about like getting dressed and going to the bathroom, it doesn't take time if you just think about it. Like it doesn't really help.
Exactly. But it's counted.
Anyways, I am here. You be the clock watcher, okay? For like when
I'm
we
gonna be
have
the
to.
clock watcher, 9:45,
Amazing.
right?
So let's hit it.
Okay. Okay, so the question is how to readjust back into regular social and family life after spending a year away from the country. Just came back from SEM and feeling so out of place with myself in the community.
Yes, I thought it was a good question because we never addressed it. And it is SEM. Let's just, for anyone that's watching this, like if they don't know what SEM is, I know that we have a lot of like not religious followers, and I feel like SEM is a very specific word for a very
Yes, yes.
minority community that we're in. So it's seminary, which is a year abroad, which is kind of like a gap year that typically people will take before they start college or before they get married. And you go to a school in Israel, usually. It doesn't have to be Israel, but typically it is. And you study and you have fun and you gain weight and you make new friends and I think that, and then you come back and then you have to get married, apparently, or start dating, or I think that's like the assumption. And I think that this person's asking this question because it's like, how do I adjust back to life? And I think that touching upon those points is important.
Yeah, and just to kind of echo a little bit of what you're saying, I think that understanding the context here is going to be super important and how we answer this question. So when people go on their gap year to Israel, oftentimes in the more ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities, what we call the yeshivish communities, people will go for their gap year between high school and college to seminary, and they're studying Judaics, they're studying Torah all day. Oftentimes it's the first time that they're away from home in their entire life for that long. And as Faye, you joked about, like a lot of times people, their bodies change a lot. They'll gain weight or they'll lose weight. Their bodies will shift a lot just because they're far away from home in a different country. Their routine is off. What they have available to them is off. And so it's an amazing learning experience, but it can also be filled with so many challenges because kind of going to that like psychosocial, stages of development by Erickson, like it's a time of, figuring out our identities, right? Like the teenage years are all about identity, and seminary oftentimes represents the culmination of that. And so there tends to be a lot of pressure with that like we need to go to seminary and come back knowing who we are, knowing who we want to marry, knowing what kind of career we may want to have, knowing how many kids we want to have and all their names, including middle and third names, and we have it all mapped out in our heads. And there can be so much inspiration that we get in those years because we're living almost like in this bubble of our needs are taken care of, and we're learning so much that's based on like our values and who we want to be. And this is going to be really important in the way that we answer this question, because there's such an emphasis on learning and gathering information about who we want to be and what resonates with us, with what we're learning in seminary, that oftentimes when we then come back to our family homes after our gap year, we are left with like the reality of, oh, this is who I am now, and this is who my family is. So I'm coming from all that inspiration back into reality, and that can be very jarring and shocking and hard for everybody, not just the person coming back, but for their families who've been in regular life the entire time, and not in this bubble of inspiration and just thinking about and planning for like major life, goals. And there can be a lot of clashing and challenges with that. So
Yeah.
I don't know, would you have anything to add about that in terms
No,
of
I
the
love how you
emotional
explained it.
dynamics?
It was definitely more of like a thorough explanation, and I appreciate that. And something that you said clicked for me, like during this year, you're consuming so much information, but you're not necessarily integrating it. And even if you are integrating it, you're not integrating it within the context of what your life is going to look like potentially for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you're coming home with all this like information. It's almost like information overload, but you didn't necessarily have a chance to integrate it. So I think that like, and then another point is like, typically we think of a gap year in the non-Jewish world as like a year that you separate in a way to just like experience life, but not to have to figure out who you are. It's more of like giving yourself that like break, I think. I could be wrong because I'm from the Jewish community, but it's like not the expectation of a gap year is like, because I don't know what I want to do with my life, I'm going to take this year. Versus like the Jewish community, it's the seminary is like, you're going to come back knowing who you are and what you do. And exactly. Everything's a better order.
Yeah. It's inspiring and highly pressured. And so with that all in mind, I really appreciate this question because it reflects a little bit of understanding of the importance of readjusting, right? And so I think, and I know you're going to be a big fan of this, I think journaling is going to be a really important tool here where you want to really sit down. It might take multiple sittings, but you want to ask yourself, what are my takeaways from my year of inspiration? Like, what do I know right now about my identity? What have I learned about my identity? What do I want to continue to learn about? What are things that I'm taking away that really spoke to me, and they're things that I want to integrate into my life now that I'm back here? I think asking ourselves these questions and journaling about them can be really, really helpful in framing this next phase, which is going to be about taking the inspiration and starting from your starting place in your family, in your regular life, and then going towards that inspiration, but grounded in reality. And so I remember learning this in like high school, even like the three like spiritual stages of like growth are like God / Hashem like gives us this like flash of inspiration, or in this case a year of inspiration, and then we go back into reality, and it can be very depressing because it's like, wait, I thought I was so much better than I am, or I thought I felt so much better and more connected, and it can be very hard and depressing. But that is a crucial stage, because that's when we actually roll up our sleeves and get to work to be that person that we felt like we were in that flash of inspiration. And then we get to the third stage, which is like an integrated version of that inspiration. And so I think this person, once they journal so that they're very clear on what the inspiration was and what their takeaways were, that's when they roll up their sleeves and say, okay, what can I do practically in my life the way that it is, not changing anybody in my life, just accepting this is how my life is. What can I do to get me closer to this goal of those takeaways, of that inspiration that I got? What can I do in very concrete, teeny, tiny, small step actions today to get me to that version of myself? And I think I would also just reemphasize, we're not changing anybody in our families. We're not converting anybody in our families. This is solely our relationship with ourselves. And I think that's a really important piece here.
And to be aware of like the struggle and the desire to like wish that everybody else saw things the way you do. Like I even remember when I was in Israel, like I would talk to people at home, and I feel like there's something about Israel, like you have like more like clarity of thoughts, honestly. Like whenever I would
Yeah.
be here, I would be so much more clear thinking. And I
Mhm.
remember even talking to like family members, and like I would just be able to like straight up like answer things. And
Yeah.
when you come home, I mean, like again, I definitely feel like I'm clear thinking on some level, but it's like, you know, it's kind of like an analogy of like you will still see things very differently than people. You've had a year of an experience that was very different, and like being gentle with yourself, but being gentle with the other people and not judging them. And just because you see things in one way, it doesn't mean that your way is the right way. Even if it's the more hashkafa right way, it's the right way for you. It doesn't mean it's the right way for them.
Yeah. I
So I
think
think that that's
I,
important.
yeah, and it's funny because like there's like this joke that like, you know, for parents of kids going to seminary, like you pay $25,000 to, you know, send your kids to seminary only for them to come back and be fuming angry at you and hate you. You know, so I don't even know if it's 25,000 anymore. It could be that it's more now.
Yeah,
But
I can't even imagine
but
it. Back then, like money, I didn't have any concept of money, so like I don't even remember it being like, you know, like it's like, oh, seminary, okay, whatever.
right. No,
And I'd
it's
be
like
like, how
it's
can
a
you spend that
fortune.
kind of money? Like, give it to me, I'll invest it. No way.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think that like if we were to like flip that
Yeah.
joke around, I think that a part of the amazing experience that people get from going to Israel for this year is the distance, right? Like it's distance from everything they've ever known
Mm-hmm.
in a really good chunk of time. And with any distance comes perspective. And so the perspective, if they didn't even go to school in Israel, if they didn't go to a program in Israel, right? They're still, what they're getting from that distance is just that clarity of like, oh, that's my life now, and I can like
The
really
restart.
manipulate different pieces and parts of it, right? But then on top of that, going to a program that is
Mm-hmm.
that's filling its students with tons of information, tons of aspirations, tons of inspiration, you know, just like tons and tons of stuff, right? Then it can get very confusing. There's just like a swarm of thoughts in a person's head at any given point. And so they have to kind of sift through that. And there isn't so much of a chance just to sit with that information and sift through that. And I think that the stage in between coming back home and then re-entering life, that stage is a really crucial time where we're sifting through that information that we got and we're sitting with it and seeing what we want to take and what we want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I love, you know, what you said, like it's judgment free, but including judgment free for
Yes.
ourselves. Like we should
Yeah.
not have the expectation that we are now these like rabbis and rebbitzins, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Even
like
of ourselves, like like yeah, like you're not a failure if every single thing you learned and you wanted to hold on to, you're not holding on to. And
it's
yeah,
impossible.
exactly.
It's literally impossible. And so the sign of true growth is that integration
Mm-hmm.
in a very realistic
Mm-hmm.
setting.
Being the
Um,
reality of your life with a ton of inspiration and aspiration and growth. And like
yeah,
also another point is like just because I'm just thinking as we're talking, just because you're not integrating everything in that moment and you're not holding on to every aspiration that you wanted to, it doesn't mean that that aspiration and that inspiration and that knowledge leaves you. There might be, very likely, there will be a later time in your life when you're going to dig deep into that naturally, organically, subconsciously, unconsciously, and it's going to help you. It's creating the person that you're becoming, regardless of what you are in the months after you come home.
yeah,
Um,
yes, yes. I love that. I absolutely love that.
where are
Yeah,
we?
I think
We're over time.
there's almost
Over time. We're over
we
time.
are over time. Let me check.
9:48.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
We got it. All righty. This was good, Michali. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Essentially, be gentle with yourself. Give yourself maybe another year or a few months to just settle back into your life and being easy on yourself and discovering yourself in the reality that you're in, rediscovering yourself.
Yeah.
That's kind of our takeaway.
It's an exciting
Yeah.
time because
Yes.
you're being you. You get to be more you
Exactly.
with the inspiration. So,
Awesome. Love
all right.
it. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Michali.
Sally.
We'll be back. Take care. Thanks everyone for tuning
See you
in.
next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.